sometimes we think like, oh man, I'm missing the opportunity. And I actually like think about the opposite is like, we're missing the opportunity to invite God into that space, but the invite's going to keep coming. It just is, and it doesn't stop. So even when you miss it, the Lord keeps pursuing you or calling you in certain areas and keeps nudging you in that direction.
Daytona 500 champion and survivor. Fueled by faith and determination, he's conquered the highs and lows of racing. Welcome, Michael McDowell.
You started racing at 3 years old after 37 years of racing. What has kept you going all these years in this competitive sport?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, it's funny because we just got done with a pretty intense workout and with my teammates. Yeah. And they're all 20-somethings, right? And I was like, just wait till you're 40 and really feel this, I think that there's a lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. And it's different stages of life. When I was a kid racing, I just loved it. Yeah. Right. And I still love it. But it was just fun. And it was fun and it was competitive. And then you realize like, okay, I'm all right at this, right? Like this is cool. And then when you start winning, that drives that desire to keep doing it and keep winning. But beyond that, once you get past the kid stage, when it becomes a real job and it becomes a career, and that's what we should call it, a career, not a job, because it's not a real job. But it becomes a career, then you lose some of the fun because it's more serious, right? Yeah. And there's so much money involved. And for me, my family sacrificed a tremendous amount for me to be able to race, and other partners and family members and friends, and they're all like on this journey and this dream with you. And so you feel the obligation to do it at a high level and be serious about it. Right.
Does that worry you some, that like you have to be able to perform and be like, hey, I need to end here this day?
Yeah. I think that, our sport is for sure a performance-driven sport, but so is your podcast, right? Yeah. How many listeners you have, how many partners you have. Life is a performance-driven game, right? And I think that, as I got into, full-time professional racing, I didn't enjoy the journey as much as I should have. I enjoyed being there and I enjoyed having success and all that things, but I wasn't like taking it in as like, man, this is really cool. Okay. And I feel like it is cool. And so I feel like the last 10 years that mind shift has helped me a little bit of like what I get to do is amazing. And I'm so thankful for it. And that, honestly, that's what keeps pushing me, right? Mm-hmm. That's what keeps me energized, is because I love it. I mean, I think it's incredible that I get to be one of 40. And then for me too, like, I feel like this is where God has me, and he continues to provide the opportunity. And so I take that seriously. Mm-hmm. I take that faith element and stewardship element of like, God has given me an unbelievable opportunity, and it's for me to make sure that I'm stewarding it well. Mm-hmm. And so those are the two elements I feel like that, keep me hungry and keep me grounded, and keep me motivated to do it. And, how long that is, I don't know. Right. Yeah. I turned 40, in December, this past December. And, but I feel great, and I feel more competitive in the race car than I ever have. And so I don't see like this end. I just kind of take it moment by moment.
Mm-hmm. You're 40 years young.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
In 2021, you won the Daytona 500, and it was described as one of the biggest upsets in Daytona history. What changed for you after that, whether it was personally or in your career?
Yeah, it was an amazing race and night and moment. And, it was great, and it was 16 years in the making, right? And I came into this sport of NASCAR as a young 21-year-old that felt like I was going to win hundreds of races and championships. And, it just didn't work out that way. And so the journey was tough and long. And so to have that moment, it was unbelievable. Yeah, it was a mountaintop experience for sure. But I tell people this, it didn't change my life. It didn't. It was great and it was amazing. And I wish everybody could experience it. There's nothing like it, but for me, it's just what you do.
Yeah.
It's not who you are. Right. And we talked about performance, like everybody's evaluated on their performance. And that is what is so scandalous about the gospel, is that it's not based on your performance, and God's grace is not based on your performance. And so it took me a long time to understand that people's perception of my value is based off of performance. God's perception of my value is not based on performance. And that allows you to have that freedom to make mistakes. It also allows you to have the freedom to have those great accomplishments and not let it take you too high. Yeah. And so I felt like the Lord allowed me to experience that Daytona 500, and that was amazing. But it really didn't change my life. It did change my career.
Yeah.
It did. I mean, everything got better. Yeah. Race team got better. Sponsorship got better. Hiring people got easier. All the things got better from a career standpoint. No doubt about it, because performance drives that. But my life did not change. Yeah. It didn't. But it's something that I'll always remember and always have, and super thankful for it. And, when we're trying to create and trying to recreate more moments like that. But they're not guaranteed.
Yeah. And having that in memories whenever you've had past races, could you describe a little bit back a few years to 2008, when you had that crash and it was car flipped 8 times, caught on fire.
Yeah.
And you walked away uninjured. I mean, what was going through your mind through that?
It was a process of, it was my second Cup race. I was a rookie in the Cup Series, and is at Texas qualifying, like you said. I'm sure you guys will play the clip, or somebody will pull up the clip, and it was a massive crash. And in the moment, like in the actual crashing moment, I was more thinking of like, oh man, I just screwed up. I'm going to lose my job. I mean, that was my first initial thought. Nice. And then when I was in the medical care center, and I was fine, I had some bumps and bruises and some scrapes, obviously. But when I watched the replay, I just was like, man, that was massive. And I'm so fortunate to walk away and not be injured. And then, you just go about your business. Really, the next 24 hours, I was sore. I was banged up pretty good. Yeah. I raced 500 miles, the next day. But after that was a real life-changing moment. You talk about life-changing moments. This was be more of a life-changing moment. Is, NASCAR put me like on this media tour, almost like when you win the Daytona 500. They fly me to New York, to Atlanta, to LA, and it's all week long. And it's just my wife and I, we didn't have any children at the time, flying, city to city to talk about this massive wreck, right? Yeah. And it's not what I wanted to talk about, and it's not how I wanted to get known. And but I was really challenged in that flight to New York of like,
at Juliant, we're with you at every milestone, and your brightest dreams never have to fade. At Juliant, we help you shine. That's brighter banking. Juliant Federal Credit Union.
I have all these people that are like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to build your brand. And this is a great opportunity for people to get to know who you are, even though it's not the circumstances you want. Mm-hmm. And I was just challenged with like, is that what I'm doing? And like, is that what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, am I supposed to be making myself known, or am I supposed to be making the Lord known, right? Like, that's what we're called to do, right? Is to make him known. And so I was challenged on that flight of like, how am I going to handle this? Am I going to use this to build my brand, or am I going to use this to show like God's grace and protection and just miraculous to walk away and talk about that. Mm-hmm. And so it was a life-changing moment for me, because so much of my walk, and that was early in my walk, but so much of my walk was trying to keep the racing separate, right? And all at once I was like, okay, it's not separate. Yeah. And so what are you going to be known for? And what are you going to be about? And so that was a challenging moment for me, and really caused me to kind of lean in and be like, okay, the Lord has me here. This is what he has me here for, like it or not. And I'm going to do everything I can to make him known and not myself.
And while you were flying out there and you were thinking like this, it's not about necessarily building my brand, but being a disciple to the Lord. You have to fight the flesh, because I feel like our desires, I wanted to grow myself. I want to get bigger. I want to, do more things. And what helped you to say, no, that's not what I want to do? Like
conviction.
I need to do this.
Yeah. Conviction, right? Like, I think a lot of times we know what the Lord's asking us to do, and we just don't have the courage to step into it. Yeah. And the great thing about that is, like we talked about, is like his grace is sufficient daily, and he'll just keep nudging us and keep pursuing us until we do. Yeah. Right. Sometimes we think like, oh man, I'm missing the opportunity. And I actually like think about the opposite, is like, we're missing the opportunity to invite God into that space. But the invite's going to keep coming. It just is, and it doesn't stop. So even when you miss it, the Lord keeps pursuing you or calling you in certain areas and keeps nudging you in that direction. Yeah.
And that's something I've struggled with, is when I miss something, I'm like, I think maybe that's what God wanted me to do, and saying like, dang, maybe after now I failed 4 times with something he's asked me to do. I don't know if
he's still asking me.
Yeah, it's like maybe he just closed the door and he was like, you know what? I think he's done because I've asked him too many times.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has that. I think that's normal, right? You're like, you never perfect this journey that you're on, and you never get it right. Like every day you're making thousands of decisions, and some of them are right and some of them are wrong, and some of them are intentional and some of them are unintentional. They really are, right? Like, it's just life. And so I think the more that you become in tune with the Spirit just walking in your day-to-day life, you get those nudges and you're like, I missed that. I'm going to go back to that coworker and say, hey, how was your day? Yeah. Or, I didn't handle that quite as good as I want to, and you just go through and you kind of learn that process. And for me, maybe not everybody, but you only learn when you miss it. I feel like, like you only recognize it when you miss it. Yeah. And so you just, like everything, you just try to be aware and keep pushing forward, falling forward.
Mm-hmm. And going back to racing, it takes a lot of preparation and practice to be at the high level of racing that you are. What's something about being a racer that fans don't truly comprehend or see?
Yeah, I think our fans have more access now than they ever have, and I think they understand more now than they ever have of the pressure and the obligations that teams and drivers have. And I think for me, probably more of what fans haven't seen is the behind the scenes on the team aspect of finding the right people and building out the programs. I've been more hands-on in that aspect of it than I think a lot of drivers or most drivers. Some of it was out of necessity, right? Like you see the areas that you need to get better and the areas that the team can improve, and you just try to go, put all the right pieces together. And so, I'm fairly engaged in a lot of the aspects of the race team, and that's not something new for me. And so, that's probably one thing that folks don't see. I think now they know we train, and they know we're on the simulator, and they know we have media obligations and all these things, right? But the driver is still a very key part of NASCAR and the success. And it's not just on the track, but off the track too, is the quarterback that everybody's looking to for, encouragement, and looking for leadership, and looking for, direction. Mm-hmm. And, that comes at, a responsibility and an obligation.
How do you mentally prepare before a race? Yeah.
So the preparation, it starts sometimes weeks, but mostly a week and a half before you're actually getting to the racetrack. Our schedule's so crazy, but you're preparing last week for Atlanta, but you're still thinking about COTA and the things that you need to do that are coming up. Mm-hmm. And then this week has just been all about, COTA and as far as preparing. So you study video, you're studying data, you're looking through, in-car cameras of the drivers that you felt like did it the best. You're, looking through data, you're going, to the simulator and running different setups and working on different, techniques as far as what you could do to improve, especially on road courses. And then you're ciphering through that data as well of, where you did it well and where you need to improve. And so, by the time you get to the racetrack, most of your heavy lifting prep work is done. Yeah. And then you just go drive, and you give the feedback to the team of, this is what the car's doing, this is what I needed to do. And then you just got to go perform, because there's not a lot of opportunities for changes once you get there. And so you have to be ready to hit the track, and you have to be mentally prepared to, run your best lap right out of the gate. You just got to be on it. And there's no building up to it. It's, you don't get 2 or 3 days of practice to, to get there. You got to be there in 10 minutes, and it's hard to do.